Hi, I'm Valerie Espinosa, your New Mexico Public Regulation Commissioner, and I'd like to welcome you back to another edition of our program. We've been doing this program for 16 years now, and I want to thank the viewing audience for watching. And so with us today, we have a very important person here that I've just come to know recently. Her name is Andrea Romero, and she is running for a seat in District
46.
So let's hear all about Andrea Romero. I know that you have some really good credentials in terms of education, and I've just been seeing a lot in the news lately. And you know, besides all that, you know, you want to talk issues,
Right.
and that's why we have this program.
Great.
We're not here to, you know, promote anyone in particular. We're here to tell the public what you're going to do and what your plans are.
Yeah,
And
thank
so
you.
I'm just really impressed with your resume. So let's tell the audience who you are.
Well, again, I'm Andrea Romero. I grew up in House District 46, which actually encumbers the northern part of Santa Fe County. I grew up in the more rural parts of our district, which in Chimayo, and my family's in
Chimayo?
Yeah.
How could you grow up in Chimayo? I grew up in Espanola.
Well, same. So when my parents divorced, I was about 10 years old, and my mom went up north to actually be closer to family, where my family's from. We moved in with my aunt in Espanola and then kind of bounced around quite a bit, La Mesilla, Chimayo, and then my parents now live in Nambe. So I was in my mid-teens is when we moved there. But we, you know, have a lot of family all around the district in the northern part of our district, House District 46. And I now live in the more southern part of our district, which is in the urban areas, just a couple blocks from my dad's mom, my grandmother, who's been there since 1960, moved down from Taos with my grandpa, settled, you know, had, 7 kids?
Big family.
A huge family. So my
you're
family grew
lucky.
up in the district. Yeah, my dad went to, you know, junior high at BF Young, Alvord School, when it was then Alvord. Both of my grandmothers are teachers, retired, of course, now. But while I grew up in the northern part of the district, my mom commuted us back and forth. Of course, my dad was in Santa Fe. And I went to Pinon, Capshaw, Santa Fe High School.
I'll be darned.
Yeah, you know, athlete, all of it.
What
but
kind of
focused
sports
a lot
were
on
you
school.
in?
So I played volleyball my whole life, volleyball, basketball, track. And so just did that, played a lot of softball, but not with the high school, did club sports. In fact, you know, just being on the campaign trail, reconnecting with everybody that has been a part of my life that helped raise me. And
Well, I guess
you know.
so. You walked in the building and everybody knew you. And
Well,
I'm thinking,
yeah.
I'm surprised I haven't ever really met you. I've met some of your family, and I
Yep.
know Donna and her lovely sisters, and
Lisa,
and
my Aunt
so
Donna.
yes.
We have amazing family, you know, so many small business owners, plumbers, contractors. It's, you know, most of my family works in construction on my mom's side. And then on my dad's side, you know, he was the first to graduate from college, went to New Mexico State. And from our whole family, I was actually the first female in our family to graduate from college. So,
And let's not forget to mention what college you graduated from.
well, after Santa Fe High, I was very fortunate. I went off to Stanford University. You know, school was always super important to me, my family. They always encouraged everything that I could do to succeed in school. And so, you know, education is still a very, very important
That's
pillar,
nice.
not only of our campaign in House District 46 and ensuring that we fund education properly, starting with early childhood. You know, it's been something that, you know, was instilled in me as a kid that if you want to do anything in life, you've got to do it through school first.
Do you tutor by any chance? I'm looking for a tutor.
I had, and actually my cousins are still tutoring
for
right now.
my granddaughter. So this is great. You keep talking about yourself, and I'll just keep picking your brain.
Yeah, sure. No, it's been, you know, it was incredible to have that experience at Stanford, and you know, that afforded me the opportunity while I was writing my honors thesis there to travel to Southern Africa, which I fell in love with and ended up there for several years after graduating. And you know, worked on a project there that I founded in sustainable farming and water harvesting. And
Goodness,
so,
where do they
yeah.
find all this young new talent? I love it.
Yeah, I just, you know, my heart for service began when I was really young. You know, participating in as many things as I could, just to figure out how to solve problems and, find the ways to do that with, whatever resources we had available. And just, again, fell in love with Southern Africa. The culture is actually very similar to New Mexico, the cariño, all of the, just the good vibes of people, great people, that just big hearts and opening up their homes and their families to me immediately, not knowing so many people. And that's the same, sort of reception we get here in northern New Mexico. It's so wonderful. Spent several years there, ended up in Washington, D.C., working for the International Food Policy Research Institute.
Jeez.
And I was a communications specialist in the Development Strategy and Governance Division there, hosting big international, conferences, different convenings to talk about food security globally, and in stressed areas like the Horn of Africa and the Middle East. And came back home, actually making the commitment while in DC. One of the biggest challenges before I left, New Mexico while in college, and then even in Southern Africa, was how do we create jobs? We're in stressed economies. How do we actually build economies to scale in stressed areas? And the village I worked in southern Mozambique had 90% illiteracy. And coming back home, the same sort of, challenges with education, not exactly, paralleled, but just how do people survive and thrive and become productive members of society when the systems are broken? And so made the commitment actually to come back to New Mexico, to work with startup businesses, to help small companies or just, ideas come to fruition. And in that time, met Alan Weber, our now mayor of Santa Fe. He was running for governor at the time. I heard him speak, quit my job, started working for him full time. And, just this whole heart of service, how to build business, all of that came back to do that. And after that campaign ended, started my own company, Tall Foods. I raise ostriches out in Rivera.
Yeah, I'm curious about that. Tell me a little about the ostriches.
Yeah.
I've always thought, I've heard those little guys spit on you, so don't get near them.
Oh gosh, no, that's llamas. It's so funny how ostriches don't spit. But
I don't know the difference.
They can be intimidating. They have other ways of
whacking
intimidating you. Yeah. So while living in Southern Africa, actually 70% of the industries in South Africa, they're farmed for a number of things: their eggs, their leather, their feathers, their oil, and of course their meat. It is the most highly sustainable red meat on planet Earth. Raising desert birds in the desert is what I think New Mexico needs.
I don't think I would eat a bird. Not that bird.
Well, it's as we go through sort of options and climate change solutions, before we full stop on what the opportunities are. I think as a recidivist meat eater myself, I tried vegetarianism, I tried veganism, and I couldn't culturally keep up with that. And I think ostrich meat being very highly sustainable, you need less resources, less land, water, feed to produce pound for pound the highest quality red meat, beautiful steaks, burgers, etc. That's how I founded the company. And actually about a year and a half ago, read a study that ostrich eggs were being used to harvest life-saving antibodies that were curing cholera. And so I was immediately just, how do I figure out that? So in the past year, have been doing research on antibiotics and probiotics production out of the ostrich eggs. So I may not be a meat company, but there's still that opportunity, and still growing the company now while I'm running for office.
And I bet you've knocked on a lot of doors and have met a lot of nice people as you
have
talk about it.
Again, northern New Mexico, just beautiful, amazing people. Really excited about changing the course, the status quo of what we've been seeing not only in our legislature, but in our communities, and the commitment that we have to our children, our future, and where we stand on many of these issues and where we commit to that.
The seat you're running for is the former speaker's seat, Ben Lujan, is that correct?
Yes, and a neighbor of my family's
Oh,
up
my
in Nambe.
goodness.
Yeah, so former Speaker Ben Lujan Sr. held this seat, and in the past 6 years, we've had Representative Carl Trujillo, and it's the first time he's been challenged since he first got into the seat. And so, we're really just talking about the issues of importance, I think, to voters in our district. When it comes to our values and where we align, for me, I just want to be a very strong Democrat in that seat where folks in our district know where I stand on the issues. You know, we've been challenging a lot of what's gone on in the past 6 years in regards to, you know, voting against women's reproductive health rights, against, you know, taking money from oil and gas, big telecoms, which you know, in your seat here at the PRC, what that sort of willing and dealing happening in the legislature, the kind of detrimental effects that it can have for people who are, you know, hoping to have fair playing fields when they're trying to get, you know, hooked up on broadband, when they're just trying to, you know, pay a fair price for their energy costs. You know, those are things that we've been challenging in this campaign, and just saying, you know, these are not, when you talk about capital D democratic values, we're saying, you know, we have a sitting legislator that's made those inconsistent commitments from a democratic perspective.
How very interesting. I know that I have worked with the legislature basically all my life. I mean, one of my first jobs was at the Secretary of State.
Wow.
Then I was county clerk, and you know, you discuss bills. And there was recently a bill that passed. It was Senate Bill 53. You're probably not, or maybe you are familiar with the dereg bill. So constantly and consistently every day, including 2 calls this morning, you know, complaining about their lack of service in the rural areas. And so I, you know, refer them to consumer, or I try to help them directly by calling the companies. And so it does get old. And now that they've deregged, it really ties my hands.
And that's, I think, so unfortunate. While what we can do as legislators, and of course from your perspective, is create vibrancy in competitive markets like broadband.
And quality of service
And
is
quality of
huge.
service, right? Where competition exists, we can have a higher quality of service. And when you deregulate specific companies or industries that already have pretty significant monopolies in rural areas in particular, it makes it extremely hard for us to introduce, you know, new companies who would like to compete to provide something better than copper wire, maybe fiber, you know, other opportunities to have faster, more reliable internet, better broadband service. And so these, you know, deals in exchange for deregulation has created such a nightmare for consumers.
It is, and I'm going to start giving them the number to the Capitol, because, you know, I get an immense amount of calls. Friday morning, I got about 3 calls, and that was northern New Mexico for Windstream, and that was mainly in the Espanola area. But I'm sure they provide service, you know, coming into Santa Fe as well in some areas.
They do.
So, you know, what do? I call them and I say, you know, I know we don't regulate you. I mean, just to this much. You know, we have limited regulation. What am I trying to say? But anyway, the moral of the story is that I can't really help these people anymore. And you know, the Verizon will sometimes be responsive. It just depends. If you catch them on a good day, if you catch the phone companies on a bad day, they'll tell you, sorry, you don't regulate us anymore.
Wow. And
so it's really difficult to do our jobs here, because that was one of our biggest, you know, saviors. We'd help the public. That's what we're here for.
Of course.
So.
Well, and it makes it harder for you to do your job, and for individual consumers. And I've been one of those consumers
that's
complained about my service provision. I'm paying for one thing, you know, say 100 megabytes of broadband, and I'm getting 10. And how, you know, from you being an advocate for us, the consumers, in regards to, you know, public service provisions of broadband or energy or whatever it may be, you know, how can you fight for us if that regulation doesn't exist, when we're saying I'm paying for something that I'm not getting? And, you know, individual consumers can come together perhaps to at least go to their legislator and talk about these issues.
That's exactly right.
But if there are already precedents set on deregulation, you know, it makes it harder for you to fight for us. So, you know, these are issues that are so important to me, that we can have, again, vibrant competition where, you know, new and exciting companies too can compete. You know, we cannot put all of our eggs in the CenturyLink basket or the Windstream basket or the Comcast basket. You know, I think when we talk about what's next and the next version of the internet and what speeds are going to need to be for, you know, future industries to build here, we need to be able to have a platform for that. And if we're already doing a disservice to consumers, you know, businesses are going to have their same headaches and so on and so forth. So, these are critical for how we set up our future, industries and set foundations that are strong.
Absolutely. I mean, goodness, I'm so glad that you're running because, you have ideas after ideas. And I've been watching you in action. And what is part of your platform? And I just realized that former City Councilor Patty Boucher is endorsing you, and that's great. I really admire and respect her work. And when I first ran for county clerk, she was in my corner, and I'll be darned, she's just very progressive, smart, and helpful.
Yeah, it's been so wonderful to have so many incredible endorsements on this campaign trail. Not just, thankfully, former councilor Patty Boucher lives in our district, has been a strong supporter, on the issues that matter most. And so we've gotten the AFSCME endorsement, Plumbers and Pipe Fitters, Planned Parenthood, the Moms Demand Action for Gun Safety. I'm a Gun Sense candidate of theirs. We have everyone from the firefighters of Santa Fe County, their AFL-CIO affiliates, their union, and many Pueblos throughout the state of New Mexico and tribes. Because of, my opponent's issues in sovereignty, we've been getting a lot of great support from around the state and our 4 Pueblos in our district as well, supporting our campaign. It's been great to, have such clear understanding of where, we're going as a campaign, where we want to serve in the legislature, and that's why we've fortunately been getting so many endorsements in that regard. And for us, my campaign's about 4 major issues that we want to tackle while at the legislature. Number 1, education. We talked about this already, but fully funding the programs that we need for
the programs
New Mexico's
and the
future.
teachers.
And
they
the
keep
teachers.
getting
the brunt of every negative thing that's
for
been
as long
thrown at
as
them.
I've been around. My grandmother was an educator. My mom, she raised me, and I remember back then they didn't get paid very much, and they still don't get paid for putting up and dealing with these kids. Some want to learn, some don't.
And well, yes, but I think if we create, that classroom setting where not only teachers feel respected, that they can teach for the love of learning and not just for the, trying to teach to a test. We've seen way too much of that in our system. And that was not the experience that I had. I believe I had a world-class education growing up.
Oh yeah, we had the best of the best teachers.
We did, and I think we still do, but I think treating them with respect and allowing them to actually pursue their interests of why they became teachers, again, the love of students, the love of learning. We need to set up, again, more foundations for actual success. And that starts at early childhood as well. It's been really disappointing in the past 3 sessions to not see 1% of our $23 billion permanent fund to go to New Mexico's children. And, we call it a rainy day fund. When is it not raining on New Mexico's children?
That's a good point.
And so, that's been a huge proponent. I've knocked on doors of teachers that are on everything from SNAP benefits to WIC.
Well, yeah, they also have to go get another job.
Right, and so much for summers off, or even and they're working around the clock just to not only provide tools and resources in their classrooms, from markers to paper, asking for donations. It's devastating to see that New Mexico's classrooms do not have the budgets they need to succeed well, and that's the future of our state. So if we don't start there, it's where do we begin? And so that's something I'm fully committed to in the legislature and ensuring that we fund properly. And I'm very excited about, the coming hopeful tide of Democratic leadership that we'll see starting at the governor's desk all the way down the ticket. So, this primary is so important to how we decide who our future leaders are, not only in our state house race, but across the board. And, again, starting with education, I think so many Democratic candidates right now are saying this is where we have to get it right first. Then we talk about jobs and economic diversity in our state and ensuring that we're not fully relying on oil and gas to not only fund education, but so many other areas that we definitely need to make progress in. While we've seen states surrounding New Mexico continue to thrive and succeed and leaps and bounds out of their economic recessions, we're still struggling, and that's, I think,
we're always struggling. We're always 49th, 45th.
is There's no reason for
And
that.
I know just one person can't save everything. You
Of
know.
course not.
I do try, and it doesn't work that way. So I know you, as one person, can't.
Right.
But
I
you can
think-
certainly make a difference.
Right, making a difference and being on the same page with where we need to put our priorities and where we need to focus our energies.
Before you finish telling me your other goals and your platform, I'm wondering the district. It's probably intermixes with my district. So your north side of.
Yeah, so we're the north portion of Santa Fe County. We encumber, again, follow the villages of.
Is it Hyde Park and
No,
what
so
areas?
it basically, the boundaries inside the city of Santa Fe is really the rail yard area to the east, and
I'll be
then to the
darned.
west basically covers the Siler Road.
So Las
area.
Campanas isn't in there
It
either.
is,
Oh,
it is,
okay. I
and,
was a little
and then it shoots
confused.
up north. So it's a very strange sort of carve out in the city portion, the more urban portion of the district, and then as it goes up north, it sort of follows the county line exactly. But again, we have Tesuque Pueblo, we have Pohuaque, the Pohuaque Valley, Jacona, all of the villages in there, Pohuaque Pueblo. We also have villages of Nambe that follow up north to Chimayo, Rio Chiquito, everything, across the county line that follows into Sombrio, Espanola.
And then Rio Riba is on the other side of
Right.
the street, and you're on this side.
Exactly. And so actually I grew up in the Rio Riba side, but we joke because my cousins grew up on the
Santa Fe County.
Santa Fe County side. And so, it's my brother's a state policeman in Rio Riba, and, they're constantly dealing with those jurisdictional issues. And
That's right.
and,
And that's still an issue now,
right,
I think.
in Chimayo and in that part of the district. So we, and then we follow down the more southern part. Again, we have all of San Ildefonso Pueblo, and then
Los
we get
Alamos?
No, it's right
I
on
was
the
gonna say,
border
are you
of Los
part of
Alamos
Los
County. But we
Alamos?
do have part of the Los Alamos School District, students that go to Los Alamos Public Schools as well. So it's very diverse, perhaps one of the most disparate districts in the state. We have such a awesome spectrum of people, contributing in so many different ways. Lots of union workers, lots of, people that are full bore on the Planned Parenthood agenda. In fact, largest concentration of Planned Parenthood voters in District 46. So a very wide ranging district on so many different issues. But, when it comes to where we stand as Democrats, that's some of the value that I'm hoping to bring into this seat.
Good deal. Well, you're very prepared, that's for sure. And I'm very motivated. I can respect that. I know we don't have much of a budget at the state, and so a lot of employees barely get a 2% raise here and there, and some people haven't even gotten raises in 10 years. Is there something you can do to help the state employees with that?
I've been talking to AFSCME voters, AFSCME allied folks, in how we ensure that, particularly with even retirement benefits, fully funding those that have already served. These are huge concerns for the future of New Mexico, and we have to ensure that the commitments that we've already made, we find solutions for. I mean, not only does that, it's unfortunately not a silver bullet. We do have a permanent fund. And the second largest in the United States. The fact that we're seeing that these challenges haven't met their actual, the demand for pulling out of our fund to make that happen, and ensuring that we keep the promises already made. This is something to me that I don't see how we haven't done that yet, made that commitment with the money that we already have in our coffers to make that happen. But we also need economic diversity. When we talk about continuing to cut taxes on not only the wealthy, but big corporations, that's not bringing people into our state. It starts with education. Why people don't stay in New Mexico, why companies don't want to build here. They look at future workforces, they look at where their kids can go
Our
to school.
doors are closed. We've shot down so many businesses that could have come here.
And that's just it. And it's not because, the tax breaks are great. That's not bringing anyone in. It's about having high quality education for their future workforces and for their children when they do move into the state. And not just that, investing in our homegrown companies that are doing, wonderfully, that are succeeding here, that built it here, that are planning to be here, lifelong. They want to make it in New Mexico. And we're not, as a state, investing in those companies, or we're always really late to the game when it comes to investing in our own. And so I think, when it comes from a policy perspective, legislators can do so much more to ensure that we're investing in homegrown companies that we want to see succeed here, and doing everything we can to make them successful here. And that creates more economic diversity, that hopefully increases our state budget to do more, and then putting our money in the places that we need it to see it most.
And I'm going to ask you a question that I usually ask everybody, and that is, at one point in time there was a bill that was going to be pushed to see that the public regulation commissioners became appointed versus elected. I was strongly against it at one point in time, but I've had a change of heart because northern New Mexico really depends on that office to have a voice, and I can see why they need a commissioner they can call.
Right.
But on the other hand, I have seen a lot in the meantime. So I've talked to a couple of legislators, and I'm thinking that there's got to be a solution to accountability and a solution to really listening to the people and what they need, but how? Is it appointed versus elected? What are your thoughts?
I truly believe that it should be an elected position. When it comes to where we are, I think right now in our democracy and what we're holding people accountable for, I am a first-time candidate getting into this race because I believe in the issues that have gone awry that we need strong democratic leadership in. And holding our elected officials accountable is part of what our responsibility is, not only as citizens, but as members of our, vibrant society. And so as we see folks that do get elected, whether it's the PRC or what have you, appointed positions, they're accountable to the folks that appointed them. That doesn't go to the broader sort of society, I think, of people, particularly how important it is when in a position like at the PRC that everyone's paying attention and is part of the solution and holding their elected officials that they cast a ballot for accountable to every bit of what that position means. I think on the appointed side, I think the argument that's being made right now is about, are they qualified to sit in these positions, and that's why we need to appoint, versus I'm
not sure. That's
and
a
I don't
problem.
know, and I don't know really what the argument would be pro appointment.
Because you're accountable, let's say, to, yes, the public still, but the governor will put that person in that position, maybe, depending how it's done. And then maybe, if there's poor performance here, then they're going to call the governor and say, hey, I can't get some help out there. That happens quite a bit. So then that person's going to say, oh boy, I got to get somebody in there that's going to, be responsive. So I don't know. I'm sort of torn, but leaning more now toward appointed. And then another thing on the same issue, more or less, public regulation commissioners are not allowed to accept, certain amounts of contributions, $5 seed money, or no more than $5 from a regulated utility. My thought is that what I've seen at the Mary Roundhouse with some legislators, not all, is that it's okay for them to take money from a utility, and big amounts of massive money coming in, and I'm talking rolled bank kind of money, with the contributions. There's no difference between our position and your position should you get elected. So why should you be able to have money that, or have the utility take you out on a golf outing, or take you out to a Fiesta game, or even a Super Bowl, or whatever kind of game they go to, Isotopes, UNM. I don't understand that why it's okay for a legislator to accept this kind of money and it's not. I don't mean it's okay for either or. I just want to see a bill or something say, let's level this playing field like you did for us.
Right.
What's wrong with the $5 contributions and hard work and knocking on the door here and there, not just here at the PRC, but across the street? What are your thoughts?
Wow. So
big money
big money's influence, particularly in our District 46 seat, I think has been incredibly disheartening, because you do see that pay to play. You see favors in exchange for exactly what you're talking about, free lunches
across the board. I'm not just talking.
And we've made it harder in our legislature to understand where that money's being spent, the meals, all of the in-kind, quote-unquote, contributions that are being given to our legislators. We we used to be at a $75, contribution for lunches, dinners, et cetera. Now it's up to, I believe, $200 or $100, which, if it's anything beneath that, it skates right under the radar. And that's, ridiculous when we're talking about where are legislators spending their time, how are they representing us? And then when you see those deals in exchange for baseball tickets or trips to, Phoenix for Fiesta Bowls or whatever else, we see that translation through votes, through bills that are being backed. And that's total pay to play. But it's harder to follow that money because we don't have the regulations in place. We don't have the transparency, sunlight laws available to us to actually ensure that we can catch that. And instead, it's, we leave it to journalists versus our systems to actually uncover those.
Well, on one hand, I think it's great that the journalists are there because
right. Without them, everything would be under the radar. I think when it comes to keeping our public, officials accountable. And, it is disheartening when you see the translation through, sweetheart deals and bills that are pushed. Particularly for big industry that is, doing detrimental things to our people. And so when we see that, it's not only disheartening, but it begs to say we need to have laws strengthened on transparency and where that time is being spent and where that money is being spent to influence our elected officials. So 100% with you on how we can actually make sure that we can, follow where that's
limit
going.
the contributions to $5. How's that?
That's great. It's been, as a state legislative candidate, there is no public financing for these seats. And of course, the legislative seat itself is an unpaid part-time position, or at least it's billed that way. I think it's much more than that.
Well,
now,
actually, I think you only get your $30 a day for when you're at the legislature, something like that, to stay overnight, and then I'm not sure how it works.
Right. However, that
although you could change that, and you could change the point that elected officials don't get raises either.
Right. That's very true in this regard. But I think our state, from the systemic portion, and of course I studied political science and international development. So for me, it's about the systems approach to how we fix it. Having only a 30-day or 60-day session to get everything done.
It's kind of difficult.
We've got to do more to figure out the bigger picture of
there's,
how we do
there's
that.
one more thing I want to get in because we're going to wrap up here, but there's accountability in that there's a rule that allows elected officials to come to work just one day a month, and laws. You got to change that too, because that probably contributes to probably a huge portion of why people don't have to show up. So anyhow, like that poor assessor and wherever he's at in Albuquerque that doesn't come to work much. But if they can change that law, and I think a long time ago one of the senators from northern New Mexico tried to push that through because they had the same problem years back. Anyhow, I'm going to let you wrap up with a quick minute, and because we are way past time.
Yeah, so, for me, it's why I'm doing this, and thank you for having me on the show. I think, is to really understand that it's about commitment to New Mexico. It's about what we need to do to change our, systems and what's going on in our state, and knowing that coming as a first-time candidate, seeking this seat in the New Mexico State House is about what we can do to make New Mexico a better place to live, thrive, and give back. My commitment overall is to leave the place that I grew up in better than I found it.
Great. Now, how can they find you? Give them your phone number.
You can find me at andrearomero.com. My number is 505-470-6684. Give me a call. If I haven't knocked on your door yet in the district, we will. We've got 2 weeks to go, so very exciting times.
I wish you the best, and
Thank
it's
you
been
so
a
much.
pleasure getting to know you.
Such a pleasure to meet you and get
again,
to have this time.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank
Good
you,
luck.
Valerie.
I know what it's like walking in your shoes and knocking on doors. It's hard.
It's hard, but it's worth it.
It pays off. Anyhow, if you'd like to appear on our program, give us a call like Andrea did at, let's see, I was going to give my cell number, 827-4533. Thank you for watching.